I've definitely been dehydrated and have cramped up on a ride, and it was the worst pain of my life. I'd like to prevent that in the future, and I'm wondering, do any of you monitor how much water you drink on a daily basis? Do you have a recommended amount? I know that I should drink water when I'm thirsty, and I do drink a decent amount, but I'm wondering what you all do. Thanks, and keep up the amazing work. First things first, we should probably address cramping, because we've addressed this many times.
Super succinctly, yeah.
Yep. And then we'll go more into the hydration side with this.
Cool.
I guess,
I'm really excited about this. I used to think that cramps were a myth.
Oh,
Because for a really long
They're
time,
very not.
for many years, I never cramped. I know, I know that now. And then the first time I cramped, I was like, "Wow, this is real, and it's really terrible." And then I was really struggling with this for a long time. So I can't wait to get into this.
yeah, count yourself lucky. That's but you can
Yeah,
postpone
let
it
me
that
tell
long.
you, it's real.
It's ruled every race that I can in
Really
recent
bad.
memory.
That's great.
Okay, so just on the front of cramping, there's no definitive science. There's no research that's carried out to a point that can definitively say this is what causes cramping. The best we've got is a couple hypotheses, one of which is the dehydration electrolyte theory. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but that just ties to dehydration, making sure you have enough electrolytes on board to actually absorb fluid. And then the other is the neuromuscular theory, and that's just that this is where the TRP channels, the transient receptor potential channels, and all those things that the pickle juice and the mustard and all those things that hijack your brain for a minute and allow it to shut down those muscle signals. It's that idea.
That's the hot sauce too, right? The same.
Yeah, really anything of that nature.
Pro tip for that one: candied ginger.
Sure, candied ginger.
Yeah,
Yep.
because then you're not drinking
They've
hot sauce while you're
demonstrated
riding a
efficacy.
bicycle. Or pickle juice.
Yeah, no, but these things
Yeah.
have worked, and they have
Yeah.
worked like in an instant for people. They just don't work consistently. So they
Yep.
can't say,
Yeah.
nope, this is absolutely what it is, and this is absolutely the solution. So it's looking like it's obviously multifactorial. There are a number of things that play into it, and both these things are definite hitters. So that they're part of it. So it is a safe assumption for us to say the hydration level in some way is tied to cramping. So let's just move forward with that assumption.
Sure. So yeah, I guess with that, let's talk about the hydration itself.
Yeah. So, and I have to eat some of my words here. First off, using the color of your hydration or the color of your urine as a method for telling you am I hydrated or not is problematic to say the least. If you've ever heard of Armstrong charts or maybe even seen them in a gym or a fitness facility, they'll show you, if your pee is this color, you're hydrated. This color, you're mildly dehydrated to extremely dehydrated. Armstrong charts. Those have been kind of shot down over probably not even recent years, probably a while ago. I think they came out, maybe about 20 years ago. I don't know how long they held traction, but they don't these days. The other thing, and so the reason you can't use the color of your urine is that some medications, some vitamins, drink a bunch of water in a narrow time frame, just plain water. Mildly diuretic drinks like coffee and tea, more diuretic drinks like alcohol, for instance. I mean, when's the last time, and I don't know that many of us do this anymore, but think back to your college days where you pounded 4 or 5 beers in a row. Okay, did a beer bong or
Christmas
something.
party.
Yeah, okay, there you go. You were probably peeing pretty clear by the end of that, right? Doesn't mean definitely does not mean you're hydrated. So that's problematic to say the least.
Right. And I think sometimes when people are like, oh, I've got to get really hydrated for this race, they just suddenly start drinking high volumes of water. And
Exactly.
then they're like, oh, my pee's clear. I'm good.
That's the knee-jerk reaction, and that's what we think,
not.
right? So understand that our bodies protect against dehydration by retaining or losing water. Really good at regulating that. So often enough, dark urine can just mean that your body's retaining water. It's trying to keep you hydrated, not necessarily dehydrated. It can mean exactly the opposite of what you're thinking. And then again, that straw-colored urine does not necessarily mean you're hydrated. It just means a lot of water's coming out.
And sometimes, like if you go up to altitude, your body's trying to artificially reduce your blood plasma volume to artificially increase your hematocrit.
Correct.
And you just suddenly start having to urinate much more frequently, and it comes out really clear, and you think, oh, I'm really hydrated.
so hydrated.
Usually at altitude, that's probably not the case.
So there's in December of 2017, so right at the end of December, a paper in the British Medical Journal authored by Dr. Tamara Hugh Butler et al., and colleagues. This is a paper that was actually cited in an article Andy Blow wrote for Precision Hydration a year or two ago. And it's titled Dehydration is How You Define It, Comparison of 318 Blood and Urine Athlete Spot Checks. And the gist of this paper, and it's I'm sure Tucker's going to link to that. It's absolutely worth a read. It's not a long read, and there's a lot of good information in it. But and I'll quote this: drinking to keep urine clear or maintain body weight may lead to overhydration. Just what we're talking about. I mean, if you weigh yourself prior to the bike workout, you weigh yourself after the bike workout, you think you're just going to pound a bunch of water and be back on track. Not so. This is how we dilute our blood sodium levels. So if you think of dehydration, clinically, it's typically subdivided into intracellular and extracellular. And intracellular is in the cells, so within the muscle cells in this case. And then extracellular is the blood plasma. Okay, so when we see cell hydration, we'll get an increase in blood sodium because, well, we'll get an increase in blood sodium. When we see plasma dehydration, we'll get a decrease in blood sodium. And what this tells us is that water follows sodium. So this just imparts how very important it is that sodium is part of the mix. I mean, electrolytes in general, but sodium is the big boy on the block. And we've talked about this number of times. And when we're in balance between this intracellular and extracellular hydration, we have what's called normonatremia. Normonatremia. And that's 135 to 145 millimoles per liter of blood. And it's not important what that measurement is so much that that's a really narrow range. 135 to 145 doesn't leave a whole lot of wiggle room. So it says this is a very sensitive system, and it does its job quite well. But if we dilute it or overindulge our salt intake, we can push ourselves into that hyponatremic territory or the hypernatremic territory, both of which have their own issues, and both of which have to be pushed quite a ways before they're actually threatening to our health. I mean, I know that you hear hyponatremia and you think coma and death. That's at the far extreme end of things. Yeah. So you can get a little bit hyponatremic and your performance can suffer because of it, but it's not in any way life-threatening at that point. So this paper gave me a couple takeaways. One is that urine concentration is not a reliable measure of hydration. And that's unfortunate because I used to recommend those pee sticks, and it turns out those pee sticks are probably no more effective at telling us that we're truly hydrated, at least according to this study, than looking at the color of our urine.
Oh, wow.
I know. That's unfortunate because I thought I had a real clear-cut way to say, yes, I am hydrated. And again, according to this paper, not so. And I'm going to defer to the experts here. So this leads us in our quest for clear urine to overdrinking. Overdrinking means more water in the system, means less sodium in the system, means dehydration. So you can actually, crazy as it might sound, dehydrate yourself by drinking too much water.
Yeah, it happens.
And then the second takeaway, is that blood sodium concentration is key to monitoring hydration. So if you take nothing else from this paper, recognize the importance of sodium. Sodium has to be coupled with water in order for it to be absorbed. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you don't necessarily have to take salt tablets or have to take an energy fluid with sodium. There might be enough sodium in your system due to your diet that's already on board. So it's not just as simple as co-ingesting water with sodium all the time, but you do have to recognize that there is a very important electrolyte component to proper hydration.
Yeah.
Can't just drink water and accept that everything's going to take care of itself.
Yeah. If only. That would be great. Episode 221 is where we spoke with Andy Blow from Precision Hydration.
And it's looking like he's going to come back.
Hopefully. Yeah, it'd be great. He was a fantastic guest. And if you want more information on the hydration side of things, and we go into sweating quite a lot in that one. That's kind of the main focal point.
Good podcast.
Which obviously affects hydration. You can get more information from that one. So that's episode 221. How about some practical tips? I don't know, anything that any of us do to try to help stay hydrated?
So I have to say, I'm maybe not the cramp king, but I've had my fair share of cramps.
I'm always a cramp king.
Okay, I'll take it. I will wear that crown because I earned it. And the one thing I did change, and really the only thing that was a consistent change, was increasing my sodium intake. Being very clear that most of the drinks I was taking maybe had 300, 400, 500 milligrams of sodium in them. It's pretty clear just from looking at my jersey and just from watching me. I sweat a lot and I hemorrhage salt. So obviously I'm a heavy sweater and I lose a lot of salt in the process.
Chad wasn't here when we did the salt test.
No, I missed that. I know. So I got to do it.
But not necessarily, Andy said, looking at your jersey is not necessarily the best
and
way.
I know, I recognize that too. Yeah. But this is the one thing I've changed. I've gone from 500 milligram doses up to 1,000 and 1,500 milligram doses, and cramps are a thing of the past.
And you're using precision hydration stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Because I'm sure people ask, like, what are you doing to get that?
Yep, and I love it. It's subtle in taste, and they have packets, they have the tablets. I just like
the tablets are easy. I know some people don't like the effervescent ones like that. Like they feel like it makes it bubbly, but y'all know that I like bubbles in my water. So, but they're so easy to carry. And then like you can just like, even when you're riding, like you could, if you needed to, and you just had a bottle of water given to you, you'd be able to pop it in, whereas a packet might be a little tougher.
Put in your mouth like Pop Rocks.
Probably could. I guess.
Just drink as
long
you
as
go.
you're getting
Keep it in
enough
a
water,
cheek. Yeah. Just cheek the thing and drink. Cool.
Okay, so in this case, my tips would be along these lines. On the dehydration side of it, get a sweat test, get a sodium test. They're simple. They're easy. You can even estimate it. But I think Precision Hydration will do it free for you pretty much anywhere they are, right?
Yeah, if you contact them, and then they basically have like different testing centers,
Yeah.
I guess you could say. But they also are traveling around quite a lot, and sometimes they do testing. They basically say, hey, we're going to be in Denver this week, and we'll do some testing, whatever. So yeah, get in touch with them on their website, and they can do it that way.
Okay. And then co-ingestion, so taking in a little bit of glucose or sucrose along with your water facilitates, it works, plays nicely with sodium. So a little bit of sugar, and really if you're taking any sort of hydration fluid, it's going to have a little bit of sugar, it's going to have a fair amount of sodium, depending. Additionally, diligent note-taking, because there are so many variables. I mean, you can do a really hard race in the cold, a really hard race in high temperature, and very different impact in terms of sweat loss and electrolyte loss. So you have to keep track of this stuff if you want to figure this stuff out. And then, as I said earlier, don't rely on weight or urine color to determine your hydration levels, because they're flimsy at best.
Well, I mean, just in terms of drinking, normally I always have a bottle within reach, and I drink everything. Like when I get up in the morning, I drink a glass. That's like the first thing I do, sure. But like we discussed, that's not necessarily efficient hydration.
It's not even as important as you might think it is, too, because we have a number of circadian rhythms, right, that dictate certain things, and ADH or antidiuretic hormone, is it aldosterone or vasopressin? I can't remember what it is. But in any case, these are things that do ebb and flow. And as we go to bed at night, these are things that tone down such that water loss isn't as substantial as it is during the day.
Nice. And
That's interesting.
what I do before a race, though, almost every race now I've gotten into this habit, and I don't know, it could be really bad. Who knows? So N=1 here. But I take like a scratch packet the evening before, and they have like an everyday hydration one. So I have a bunch of those everyday hydration ones. It's not as like intense sugar and sodium levels. And I just drink that usually the night before, or if it's like a race in the afternoon, I'll drink it that morning or day, something like that.
Pre-hydration.
Yeah, and it's really just like trying to make sure that, because once again, I might just be drinking a lot of water and I'm not going about it in a measured way, but this is kind of just like an insurance plan to just make sure that at least I'm getting something beforehand.
Well, in favor of this actually being effective, I've used it for hangovers, and I don't have like hefty hangovers, but you know what hangover feels like, and hydration does seem to help it.
No.
Yeah.
I do.
It does not, actually.
But if I couple it with a little bit, it's just like a packet of 500, which I think is really only 250 milligrams. So it's not much, but it's something. Instead of just pounding plain water, a little bit of sodium in the system, and I got to say, it does impact the severity and duration of my hangovers.
Scratch has, they call it rescue mix, not recovery mix. I think it's for that reason. So it's not just
Aptly
for
named.
post-ride recovery.
Yeah. And sometimes, like when we would be racing in Europe and we'd have really long transfers between stages, especially during the summer when it's super hot. If we didn't have something with us and you're just going to be in the car for 3 hours, like honestly, like I would have just from a restaurant like a few extra packets of table salt.
Sure.
And just take a little pinch of that, throw it in your bottle of water. I mean, a hefty pinch of salt into a full bottle of water, you don't actually really taste it.
Right.
And it's just a little extra sodium. So, I mean,
Yeah, we've talked about
every little bit helps.
using sodium chloride before, and the pitfalls of it are that really sodium's only about a third of it, and then you get like twice as much chloride, and that chloride can lead to GI issues. Doesn't mean you can't use salt.
Right.
Just pay attention to the fact that I've used salt and now I'm getting diarrhea. Maybe it's not the best way for me to go.
Maybe it's a little bit much.
If you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up.
If you didn't like this video, you can give it a thumbs down, but let us know what you would have done differently in the comments below.
If you want to see more of these videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to become a faster cyclist, check out TrainerRoad.com.
Do it.
If you think I have better hair than Jonathan, give it a thumbs up. If not, leave a comment.
My hair is better than his.